Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your guys' host, SchuZ Schumaker. Hope you guys are having a phenomenal Wednesday. If you guys are tuning in from Australia, I hope you guys are having a great Thursday. But with that being said, I've got a very special guest to kick off today's show, and that is none other than the man that's behind Tasman Fighters, Mick Francis. Mick, I appreciate you taking time to come on today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Zach. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot to get into. We're going to talk about a lot of the fighters within the Tasman Fighters organization and branch. But before we dive into all that, I want people to get to know your story, how you got into this. And so we go back. What brought you into boxing? Like, why is this a sport, the avenue of life that you really wanted to invest your life into?
Yeah, well, invest your life into is definitely what it is. You don't go half-hearted. Look, I actually played rugby league in the NRL back in the 90s.
Okay.
So I used to play for South Sydney, and you know, I always liked boxing. I never really been to many boxing events before, but I've known Jai since he's 4 years old, and I remember his dad was having a fight one day, and he was telling me about it, and I said, mate, that's a tough fight. And he didn't have a coach and didn't have a manager, so I sort of got behind his dad for one fight only and got him some sponsorship. And then I met Jai through his dad as 4-year-old, and I followed Jai's career over the amateur careers up to the Olympics. I sponsored Jai to go to the Olympics. Then after the Olympics, and I've only been to about 2 boxing events in my life. One was his dad's, and one when I was a kid.
Okay.
And his dad reached out probably about 3 or 4 fights in as a pro and said he just needed some help and sponsorship. So we did a bit of sponsorship and put him on a wage and got him some more sponsors through my business and so forth. And then his dad wanted me to manage him. And I said, yeah, I'll manage him. Like, that's fine. I'm happy to manage him. And he rings me about 3 weeks later and says, oh, what's next? What are we doing? I said, I don't know. I said, isn't there some governing body that tells you who you go and fight, and then you go and fight on different competitions? He goes, no, you've got to be a promoter. I said, mate, promoters? I said, I've been to 2 boxing events in my life, mate. So I'm Googling promoters and so forth, and I found a guy in Victoria. He was an expert, Stu Duncan. He's since died, and I put him on a $1,000 a month retainer, and he was advising me and things like that. And we're putting Jai on different cards around Australia, and it was costing us a fortune. We had to pay for Jai. We had to pay for Jai's opponents. We had to pay the accommodation, the sanction fees, and then we had to spend minimum $20K, for instance, on corporate tickets. So it was costing a bomb, and I was trying to get other businesses involved, and it's a hard sell. And boxing isn't that big down here in Australia, and it is a very, very hard sell to try and to get corporates on board. So we persevered, and next minute we're doing events because we're blowing 50 grand every time we did a show, every time we put him on other cards, and we started doing our own shows, and one thing led to another. Then Justice Jai was sparring Justice, and their family asked me to help Justice out. And if you don't know who Justice is, he's a 26-year-old heavyweight that's going to take on the world. He's an exceptional talent down here in Australia as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Conor Wallace, another fighter that came along, and he's now going to fight for an IBF world title. So, it's something that I never planned, but it's one of those things. I'm in deep, and I'm in up to my eyeballs, and I enjoy it. The family enjoys it. My wife absolutely loves it, even though it's very stressful at times. And we are now the best promotional company in this part of the world. We've got the best stable, not only in this part of the world, one of the best stables globally.
Yep.
We've got a lot of good talent coming through at the moment, and we focus on obviously pathways for these young athletes, and we also on giving these guys fights that will actually progress their careers, not just put them in the ring for the sake of it. So we've only got a small team, but what we do well.
I want to kind of diverge on a few different points you brought up there, but the first one is this. What's so unique about you that you just talked about, this wasn't always like a lifelong dream. You weren't so invested in boxing from the time you're a young person, and now you look at what you built today, this great branch, not only in Australia, New Zealand, but overall in the entire world right now. Could you ever imagine if we go back 15, 20 years and say, hey, Mick, you're going to be in the position you're at today. Could you ever imagine that?
No, I would have laughed. 10, 15 years ago, I think I'd been to one boxing event. So, and that's when I was about 15. So it's not something. And look, I've always admired the sport,
Right.
but it's not something. I remember I was probably, I don't know, 13, 14, and I started doing boxing at a local gym, and my dad blew up. He goes, "What? He gets that stupid sport. You're going to get your head punched in." So I did a little. I think I sparred once, and you know, I don't think I don't think I. You still there?
Yep, you're all good. Yep, perfect. Can you hear me all right? Here, one sec. I apologize for all the technical difficulties there, folks. But as we're kind of getting into, we left off in a point where we were talking about, could you ever imagine this, where you're at in this point in time, being where you've been, and what you've done? What would your reaction have been if we look back 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago, as I said, I wouldn't believe it. Because I haven't really had any exposure to boxing other than, as I said, when I was a kid, I trialled it, and my dad wasn't that keen on it. And I think I'd done about 4 or 5 sessions, and that was sort of it. I concentrated on my rugby league career. So it's something that I never, ever visioned I'd ever do. But, once you get involved with these guys, and I don't think I've met many bad fighters. They're all good kids. They all work their asses off. They're all focused on one goal, is to be the best they possibly can be. And every kid thinks they're going to win a world title, and we know that's not true.
Right.
But they live and they dream, and they want to actually make a career out of boxing. So what my job is down here in Australia is to try and work with these kids. And you can't save them all. We've got a very small team, but the team that we do work with, we commit to and we invest in, and we try and progress their careers, not only in the ring, outside of the ring as well. And we try and make them better people, and we focus on their image as well, outside of the ring, the way they look on social media. If the social media it's not on brand with us, obviously we'll let them know. But everyone that's on our team we're all in it together to build the sport in this part of the world. So that's our goal.
Something else you talked about when you were talking about your story here was you get into boxing, you didn't realize how many different factors and facets there are involved with the business side of boxing. I feel like for so many fans out there, they just look at the fights that get made. They'll be upset if some fights do or do not get made. They have all these different opinions, but they don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So I want to ask about that. Obviously, you came into the sport. You didn't necessarily know it all in the very beginning. As you progressed, were you shocked at how many different facets there are involved in the business side of boxing?
Look, boxing's probably the most dysfunctional business sport ever. Like,
Yeah.
if people understood how dysfunctional it was, they would say, "You're an idiot. What are you even doing this for?" Because, mate, there's guys out there that will, destroy a kid's career over $500, and stitch him up or whatever, and everyone's trying to get an edge, and it's, I don't know, it's a tough sport. It's a really tough sport. Not only on the fighters, it's a tough sport on the promoters. It's a tough sport on the managers. There's, you get it's like snakes and ladders. Okay, like you work, you get up so far, and all of a sudden something will go wrong, and you're back to where you started. And like putting fights together. Like, I think the toughest job in the world is being a matchmaker. So that's another issue as well. And we're fortunate to have Matt Clark. He's been around the business for a long time. He does all our matching, so I don't think I could handle it. But he looks after that. Fran, my partner, she looks after the look and the feel of the events. So she's on top of all that, and I sort of take care of all the day-to-day issues with trying to put events together, fights together, negotiating deals. And we just went through a process then with Jai with this Sin Cara fight.
Right.
Now, look, the IBF have a rule where if the champion defends his title, you've got 9 months to defend it again.
Mhm.
So there's not a real major big window of opportunity to have more fights. And so Jai had his mandatory on the 6th of January earlier this year. Then we stuck a fight against an Italian squire from they came over in June that we had a voluntary defence. But a few weeks after that, we got an email from the IBF that now we've got to be in negotiations with the number one contender. And Hussein, he's not probably the opponent that Jai wants to fight. Well, I'll tell you right now, he's not the opponent Jai wants to fight. Unfortunately, we've got to go through these rules, and it's not a fight that sells, but what it does, it's Jai that sells. It's people want to come out and watch Jai. I remember back in the day when Mike Tyson was fighting. Now, he was fighting he was a very active heavyweight, and I remember everyone knew the result before the fight. And everyone knew he was going to knock someone out in the first or second round.
Right.
But every pub, every venue that was hosting that event was packed. They were out the doors because all they wanted to do is just see this animal destroy someone. And that's where we are with Jai Opetaia right now. Like, Jai, the fight doesn't make sense, but Jai makes sense. And people want to see, a generational athlete, the top of his game, absolutely destroy his opponents, and that's what he does.
Mhm.
And he's always had the ability to do what he does, and he's always had the power, and he's got a great chin, and he can, he floats like he dances. He's float like a butterfly, and that's exactly what he does. And he can box like, I don't think there's any better boxer in this country as Jai,
Mhm.
even at the lighter weights. And you want someone that's got power and aggression, he's that as well. So, we've and a great chin. So he's got everything, and he's got a great attitude towards training. I've never seen a guy that trains so hard. Like, I've been around athletes for a long, long time, and I sometimes feel as though he actually overtrains. But that's everyone's got to stay in their lanes, and he he's got a great strength and conditioning coach, and we can't start doubting each other. But it's a whatever Jai does, it's either on or off. It's all or nothing. So he's good fun to work with because it's always action, but it's a lot of work and it's hard work.
All right, so you mentioned the part about the dysfunctional aspect, and I actually want to pick your mind on this because there were rumors, and I don't think it's highly likely it actually ends up unfolding. But when Dana White was trying to get into boxing and all this stuff was going on, people were saying, "How do you possibly organize a sport like boxing? It's so almost impossible to do it to get anywhere near what the UFC is at today." is it possible with no matter who has much money, even if you talk about Turkey Al Sheikh, whatever it is it possible that boxing ever gets to a point where it is less dysfunctional, or at least has some more organization in it?
Yeah, look, I think Dana White said that boxing's broken.
Mhm.
Boxing's always been broken, and
Right.
that's the reality, and that's also boxing, and that's all we know boxing has. And adds to the drama, and you've got all different types of characters in the sport.
Mhm.
You know, if you made it more mainstream and one person owned or organization owned it, and they brought everyone in line, and everyone had had to comply with so forth. It takes the fun out of the sport. Now,
Right.
there's I think the four major sanctioning bodies, you know, I think I think the Ring magazine would be great if everyone just worked off the Ring magazine, because the Ring magazine is the true and the oldest belt. It's been around since 1922.
Mhm.
You don't actually fight for a Ring magazine; you get awarded a Ring magazine. There's no money exchanged. There's no politics involved. It is what it is, and we value the Ring magazine, and Turkey Ali Sheikh's obviously invested into that,
Mhm.
which is great, and it's in safe hands, which is I don't think anyone else in the world could have done what he's done. He's passionate about the sport, and he's passionate about developing the sport. I think the TKO, who who knows where it's going to end up, but I can see them putting a lot of money into this. I can't ever see them owning the sport, which they want to.
Mhm.
It's going to be it's going to be a long time if they do, because these sanctioning bodies are not going anywhere.
Mhm.
The history of these belts have been around for a long time. People regard different belts at different levels, but the four main belts collectively, everyone wants to win an IBF title. Everyone wants to win a WBO title. Everyone wants to win a WBC. Mike Tyson, they've seen the WBC belt around Mike Tyson's chest. Oh, I want to win his belt.
Right.
As a little kid, Jai, as a little kid, had always had that particular belt pinned on his wall, but he hasn't had an opportunity to fight for that belt, and who knows what's around the corner. Down in this part of the world, the WBO, we had Joe Parker win the WBO belt. There's every kid in New Zealand wants to fight for a WBO belt. Jai wants the WBO belt. Like, even though it's a dysfunctional, and even though that I wouldn't say it's broken, I would say it's just boxing, and that's what we know it as, and
Right.
that's what we love it as, because um, you know everyone's got their own technique, the way to sell their own brand, and everyone's got or sell the fights or an event, and that's what we love about it, and the social media and the banter. Like, you got the Eddie Hearn thing and Oscar De La Hoya, like, behind closed doors, who knows what their relationship's like, but the banter is, mate, everyone loves it,
Mhm.
and the clapback Thursdays, like, mate, I look forward to that every week.
Mhm.
So that's been dysfunctional. But if you had someone that actually owned the sport, and if they didn't like the clapback Thursdays, they'll be pulling it back.
Right.
But because it's so crazy, this world of boxing, it's exciting, and we see fighters, fights fall over, get remade. It's the drama behind the scenes. So it's a sport that's addictive. I'm addicted to it, even though I haven't grown up around boxing.
Mhm.
It is exciting, and I can't see boxing out of my life. That's for sure.
All right, so last thing I want to ask you before we dive into some of your own personal fighters is this overall aspect of Australia and New Zealand boxing. As you said, it's very, very tough to sell in a certain sense because it's still a growing sport overall. When you talk about this, there is a market for it. Obviously, we're seeing it grow, and you have the fighters. We know Jai Patel, we know Justice Hooney, we know you guys have so many great fighters out in Australia. When you talk about the future, is there a chance, and do you see the market and the interest in the sport growing where, 10, 15 years down the road, boxing can be a lot bigger in Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, definitely. I remember going back when Jeff Horn fought Manny Pacquiao. Okay,
Mhm.
that was at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. There was 52,000 people attended that event. The state government were fully behind it. There was marketing all around. I think every single gym, and especially when Jeff won that particular fight and the way he won it, and then round 9 he was gone. If you remember that particular fight, and
Right.
you know the next day, the next couple of days, every single boxing gym, especially in Queensland, was full of kids. and everyone wanted to be Jeff Horn. So it's probably one of those things where kids from all different backgrounds can go and dream and but what it does is boxing teaches discipline as well. And for those young kids and every kid that gets in the ring in the gym, they now understand how hard this sport, particularly boxing, is at the high level. So yeah, boxing's growing. It's probably had a bit of a setback in the last couple of years in Australia. We've got Foxtel Sports here. They had an exclusive deal over 3 years with one particular promoter, and unfortunately, boxing in this part of the world is sort of was in a dictatorship, I suppose. And the problem is that if you weren't contracted to that promotional company or you didn't get on with that particular promotional company and they didn't work, your fighters would struggle to be on a mainstream platform. The Zone have obviously come to this part of the world, and they actually bought Foxtel, so I think that comes into play next year. But the Zones, we actually were a part of launching the Zone in this part of the world, and no one knew really who the Zone was when we started working with the Zone. But the thing of the Zone, Foxtel is a domestic platform. However, the Zone is a global platform. So
Right.
the Zone globally is a really good platform for Aussie fighters and New Zealand fighters, but domestically it doesn't have the pull as Foxtel, and it was Stan coming into the scene as well. Stan Sports, owned by Channel 9, so they're showing interest in boxing. They've done a few shows this year which have been quite successful. So there is some more players that are coming into the sport because they can actually see that boxing is growing in this part of the world, and just if we start developing more of these fighters that are at the highest level, like Jai and Justice and Connor Wallace, boxing will continue to grow. And we have the athletes down here to do that. But we just got to create these pathways and opportunities for these kids to develop, because unless you can sell tickets or you got someone with a lot of money behind you, mate, these kids, they give up. They just, doesn't matter how good they are, they just turn away from the sport because they can't get a fight.
Absolutely.
So, it is growing. We are focused on developing the sport down here. It's a passion of ours, and by the time I'm finished in the game, I hope to see boxing in this part of the world being a tier 1 sport where it should be.
I love that. All right, so let's hop into some of your fighters. The first guy's a guy you already talked about a little bit, and that's Jai Opetaia. Obviously, like
Yeah.
you already talked about, we know the upcoming fight's going to happen. I know you're still working on logistics and everything along those lines, but I want to kind of go into the negotiating process because there were rumors coming out. I know you spoke maybe a week or two ago about the Derek Chisora offer that was on the table. Obviously, the heavyweight move up, all the different aspects. When you are talking with Jai, you're talking about his team, and you say, okay, here's this option, here's this option. What do you want to do? Just take us through how this all came to be, where you guys end up saying, okay, we're going to stick at cruiserweight. We'll do the mandatory with the IBF. Just walk us through this whole process.
Jai has a dream to unify the division. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it's not about money. He's never asked for money. Every time we've had an offer, we've just taken the offer. We haven't negotiated. We just want to get this thing out of the way before he goes to heavyweight. He will go to heavyweight. He wants to go to heavyweight. He actually wants to do bridgerweight on the way up. So he wants to be a 3-division world champion. And he will become a 3-division world champion. But he was 30 years old in June. There's only so much tread on the tire before it starts wearing out. I think we're going to dedicate the next couple of years to the cruiserweight division and to get to where he needs to be. But I actually travelled to New York for the Belanga and Hamzy Shiraz fight, and we met with the Golden Boy Eric Gomez over there, and the numbers that are coming out of the team that Zerto actually wants to fight Jai, they don't make sense. They're ridiculous, and his name's Zerto Ramirez, not Canelo, so or Terence Crawford. So you've got to understand, and the cruiserweight division is quite soft, other than the top 3, and we need to remind ourselves that if they don't fight Jai, they don't have another opportunity to make decent money. Now, we're doing a fight at the moment. Okay, we're gonna promote this next fight against Hussein Sin Cara from Germany. We know the result of it now before we even put it together. We actually offered him. I actually offered the team $100,000 to step aside. He thinks he's got a chance to beat Jai, which mate, he's dreaming. It's just another speed hump in the quest for Jai to be unified. So we've got to get this fight out of the way, and we'll get this fight out of the way as soon as we possibly can. But as everybody knows, a unification fight will always supersede a mandatory. Now, we offered Zerto a unification fight before Jai was ordered for the mandatory, which we could have possibly had that done by the back end of this year, or because once it's contracted, it's contracted. But they were originally going back and forth with numbers, and then out of the blue, a week later, we had a photo from Golden Boy before it went on socials saying that they want to give us the respect first and let us know that Zerto's had an operation on his shoulder. It's come completely out of the blue. Like, oh, come on, what I mean? Like, surely you would have known a week before that he was going to have an operation before we're negotiating. So they're saying he's going to be back in January, February next year. But there's no way. I know there's no way that Zerto's going to go straight into a fight with Jai without a warm-up fight. So here we go again. It's just, and it doesn't matter. Like, I spoke to Eric. We spoke to the guys from Golden Boy. Myself, Eddie Hearn, Spencer Brown, which Spencer Brown from Gold Star is a massive part of our brand, especially down here. We all like to fight. Turkey Al Sheikh loves to fight. He wants to put that's the only fight that Turkey wants Jai to be in. But it doesn't matter how much we want to fight. It doesn't matter how much Jai wants to fight. It doesn't matter how much the supporters and the fans and the media want to fight. It's up to the fighter. If that individual fighter doesn't want to get in the ring and face or test himself and challenge himself, that fight's never going to be made.
Right.
Now, Zerto's got an opportunity he's 35 years old, to continue his career over the next 2 years, pick and choose his opponents, because it's quite soft, and he is a great fighter. He's only been beaten once, and that was by an absolute freak. So, he is a good fighter. There's no question about it. And Jai is a great fighter as well. And it's the only fight it makes sense in the division. But if he wants to continue his career and take easy fights and go down as a legend of the sport and leave a legacy and probably not make as much money, but have sponsors and tell his family how good he was, even though he never tested himself, that's up to him. But if he wants to test himself and he wants to be the best and he wants to leave something on the sport, well, mate, you got to fight the best fighters in the competition, and the best fighter is Jai. And if he doesn't do that, honestly, he can't put hand on heart and finish his career and say he achieved everything he wanted to achieve, because he never got to the top of the mountain. So until he does that, we can't make him get in the ring. He's got to want to do it, and he will be paid well. So he could go for his career and continue to fight and make easy fights and do high fives at the end and say how great he was, or he can fight Jai Pattaya. And that's the issue, because Jai wants to fight, we want to fight, and let's make it happen.
That's been my big point. I've been very vocal about it on my show many times before. It's like, at the end of the day, my opinion is that Jai is not just the best cruiserweight, but I think he's a guy that's very close to that top 10 overall talent in terms of all boxing right now, just kind of waiting for the accolades to come behind that. And I think he'd become cruiserweight undisputed without a shadow of a doubt. But my biggest thing is, do you think it's even possible? Obviously, you just said there's a whole lot of issues with, obviously, Zerto. Then you have, obviously, Badou Jack, who's another champion right now. And I know that's his ultimate goal for Jai. Is it a realistic thing? And if it's not, then where do you guys go from then? When do you guys kind of get to a point and say, you know what, there's nothing we can do anymore. It's time just to move up to, like you said, bridgerweight and then possibly even heavyweight?
Look, my suggestion is for Jai to go to heavyweight. I've had the conversations with Jai.
Okay.
It is a tough conversation, because he knows if he goes up, he won't come back and he won't achieve what he wanted to achieve in the sport, which is, go down as one of the best cruiserweights ever and be undisputed, not, win one fight and, be crowned all the chocolates. He wants to pick them off one by one, and that's the way he wants to do it. But I think, for me, I know the heavyweight division, there's a lot more opportunities there. There's a lot more money. There's guys that will actually put their hand up and try and fight Jai. But you got to respect the fighter's wishes. It's his career. At the end of the day, it's his career, and I can advise as much as I want to advise. I know it inside out. I know the sport inside out. I know all the moving parts behind the scenes and the background of all the different fighters, and I live, breathe, and eat this thing every single day. And I can bring all the information together and advise Jai as much as I want. But at the end of the day, it's his career, and I want Jai to make the decision. I don't want to make that decision for him. He did
Okay.
say to me, he goes, if you want me to go up, I'll go. I said, mate, I want you to do whatever you want to do, mate. I don't want you to look back in 10 years and say, I wished I did this. I wish that I shouldn't have listened. I want you to make the call, and it's got to be on you.
Gotcha.
But, he does want to go up eventually. He wants to put on real size. Like, he'll probably get in the ring probably around 102 when he does, but he's got to put on a size where he can still move the way he moves.
Mhm.
And I think if he does go to the heavyweight division, he's gonna really shake the heavyweight division up as well, because he is one of the most aggressive. I've watched a lot of these heavyweights, the way they train. They don't train like Jai. Like, if he takes these guys into deep rounds, a lot of these guys gas. Jai doesn't gas. Like Jai, he can do 20 rounds at the highest level. He'll still, get out of the ring and he'll be fine. He'll be good to go. He's one of those, as I said, he's got a big motor. He's one of those generational athletes. Australia will probably never see one of these guys for another 100 years. Who knows?
Mhm. All right, so I got two final questions in regards to Jai. One of which is this. I know, like I said before, I think he would be anybody at cruiserweight without a shadow of a doubt. The only options you kind of have on the table that would be interesting options would be Alexander Usyk possibly coming down to cruiserweight. I know that was rumored for a little bit back in the while ago. Also, there's the better be of Benavidez and Bivol, three big guys obviously at 175. There's rumors of those guys moving up at some point. Could any of those four guys I just listed ever be realistic options? Have you guys ever had talks about that? Is that ever on the table?
The first time myself and Jai went to Saudi to Riyadh, we got invited to the palace.
Mhm.
And Jai was in awe because all of his, like, he loves Bivol. He's always been a big fan of Dimitri Bivol, and he met him for the first time at the palace. And Turkey was in the middle, and he grabbed Jai's hand and pulled him towards him, and he grabbed Bivol's hand, pulled him towards him, and made him shake hands in the middle, and said, "You guys, you fight, you fight." And Bivol goes, "Oh, when I unify, I unify first," and he goes, "Okay." And Jai, when we left there, Jai said, I saw his eyes. He said, there's no way he's going to fight me. He goes, there's no way in the hell. Eddie's running around at the moment saying that, you know, there's a possibility. Great. Eddie's obviously got Bivol, so
Mhm.
he obviously understands what's going on behind the scenes more than what we do. But if we could make that fight, that'd be a great fight. Jai would love that fight, but I just think it's too much of a stretch for Bivol to come up to cruiserweight, and there's no way in hell that Jai could probably get down. Like, the best, I have spoken to Jai about this, probably 88,
Mm,
89 kilos is probably the best Jai could probably get down. He
okay.
will be depleted, but he could probably get down to that and do something like a catch weight. That
Mhm.
could possibly work, because if you look at what Bivol's done, he's in the same position as Jai. There's better be, but we've seen that fight, and I know it's a big fight, but
Yeah.
I think there's more exciting fights out there for Bivol and Jai. But that particular fight would be great.
Mhm.
Jai's always said he will go to heavyweight under one condition: he fights Usyk, and he'll go to heavyweight. He'll push everything aside. He'll go to heavyweight for Usyk. Um, he wants that fight. He's been a big fan of Usyk for a long time. When Usyk was a cruiserweight, and Jai were just starting out, I remember I think Jai's dad was calling him out on social media and back in them days, and no one knew who the hell Jai was. And you know, it's one of those things that if it's the right fight, and we're not talking about the right money, we're talking about the right fight. If it's the right fight, it makes sense. Jai will go to heavyweight, and there's been conversations around going up in the IBF. Uh, you know, if Jai does go to the up in the IBF, I've spoken to the IBF. He will probably go around number three, go into number three or four. There's Derek Chisora is a fight that's been spoke about. Turkey's mentioned it a couple of times. Spencer Brown has mentioned it a couple of times. I've actually spoken to Queensbury about it, and they said it's a fight they could possibly make. Derek's, he's at the end of his career, and obviously it's about money for him now, which it should be. But we know the young bull and against an old bull, the young bull's always going to destroy the young bull. And you've got Derek Chisora, which is he's been in the sport for a long, long time, and he's another character of the sport, and he's well known, especially in the UK. That fight would sell really, really well. Like that would sell out the OT, no
Definitely.
questions about it. And Jai will win that fight, and all of a sudden he's a mandatory for the IBF championship of the world. So that's definitely another option that we'd love to take. I put that to Jai, and he's just focused on unifying this division. So unless we get the right fight, Moses is another great fight, and that's a fight I think I can see Jai and Moses fighting in the future.
Okay.
I could actually see him and Moses fighting within the next 18 months. To be clear,
right.
Because Moses is only young, look, he's 20 years old, and he's getting a bit of flack about opponent selection because some of these guys that he has fought are well below par.
Right.
And he hasn't really been tested. And even his last fight against Dillian White, like that wasn't the Dillian that we all know and we all love. Dillian's always been that very big, vocal, aggressive guy. Where the last event he was sort of quiet. He looked a little frail in the ring. He wasn't the guy that we've all known and grown up to know. So I'm still waiting to see, Moses to be tested and Jai to be tested. Like Jai's when he won the first world title, he won under the conditions he won it under with two broken jaws. Like just shows you the grit and determination. How deep Jai can actually dig. So it'd be interesting to see when Moses and these other guys, how deep can they dig and how bad do they want it? Because I know if it's a competition about who wants it the most, I know who's going to win that. And it's going to be Jai Opetaia all day. And it doesn't matter if he fights, Usyk or if he fights, Sin Cara. He still wants that fight just as much. He's not going to take any fight easy, and he's going to train exactly the same, and he's going to go into that fight with the same approach, and he's just going to leave nothing in the ring. He's going to fight the best he can possibly fight. So moving up the heavyweight, it's a great option. I'd love to see Jai move the heavyweight because I know right now there's the heavyweight division's aging, and he's as I said, Jai's only 30 years old, so he's got these guys at the right time. But if he leaves it for another 2 years, which he probably will, a lot of those guys will be gone, and the new generation of heavyweights are going to be there, and like Justice Heaney and those guys, and they're young and they're hungry and they can move. Like the days of the big heavyweights, I think, are gone, and I think that the new breed of heavyweights are going to be around between 105 and 112 kilos, and being able to move. So boxing right now is, it is exciting with Riyadh season and the Ring magazine events and Turkey Al Sheikh and Spencer Brown from Gold Star. I think we're in exciting times. So who knows?
All right. Well, I got my final question about Jai Opetaia is this: when you talk about his future, when he finally puts down the gloves one day in the future, what do you think his resume will look like?
His resume in the future, I think he'll go down as probably the best fighter to ever come out of Australia and New Zealand. And I know Joe Parker's a New Zealander, but I think Jai will come out to be one of the best fighters to ever come out of the Southern Hemisphere, and he'll go on to do bigger and better things. He's a really good guy deep down. He's a family man, and he loves Samoa. He wants to help and create opportunities in the islands as well, and do some really good work there. But I think Jai will be known as the best fighter to ever come out here, the best cruiserweight to put the cruiserweight title around his chest. I think he'll be a three division world champion, and I think he'll probably achieve things that he couldn't believe he would have achieved himself. So, look, I'm super proud of Jai as not only a fighter but as a person, and we're family, and I love him like a brother, and I want nothing but the best for him.
All right, another guy I want to transition into is Justice Hooney, who I know you've alluded to a couple times as well. I'm very high on him. I think obviously we look at what happened to Fabio Wardley in that situation. He was dominating that fight up until the miraculous KO by Fabio. But I think for a lot of people, he was a drastic underdog heading into that fight. I think he proved a lot of people wrong in that situation. So I'm pretty excited for him. When you look at him returning, building himself back up, what's the future for Justice Hooney look like?
The future is really good for Justice. Like that last fight, it was the perfect storm because I actually, and Eddie Hearn did say it as well. We can't believe that Queensbury actually, had him down as fighting Fabio Wardley. I just thought it was a huge mistake on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
They got Justice 5 weeks out, and Justice wasn't really. He was in the gym 3 days a week, just hitting the pags and things like that. But he wasn't really in full camp. Justice at the time had an issue with his nerve in his arm and his bicep. He had an operation after the fight in January, and when they went in and operated, when they put a block in his arm, the anaesthetist, and they've actually moved the nerve. So every time he threw a jab, it was like, when you hit your funny bone, it's
Mm-hmm.
like that feeling. So every time he threw his jab, when it flicked out, and the reason he had that operation because he's had 3 chip bones in his elbow, and he could hardly lift his elbow for the last 3 years, and he's been fighting with this injury without getting it fixed. And so we had that operation. The elbow was fine, but unfortunately, the anaesthetist when they went in, they something happened. So we're actually in the process of having that operated on. And when we had the call, and I said to Justice, I said, mate, this is a great opportunity for you. It's not, I know the issues and it's short notice, and you've got the issues with your bicep and so forth. I said, but mate, you go into this fight. It's a stadium fight. This is your coming out party for the UK, and we had that with Jai when he fought Jordan Thompson. When Jai went in that fight against Jordan Thompson, they all booed him when he came out. When he won that fight and the fashion he won it and how ruthless he was towards Jordan and the smack talk Jordan leading into that particular fight, everyone cheered him, and his profile in the UK went through the roof, and he got more fans out of that than fighting Jordan Thompson here in Australia. Same deal with Justice. Justice went over there, Fabio Wardley, in the Lions Den, in a sold out stadium. On the night it was raining, it was miserable. In Ipswich, and I said to Justice, I said, mate, if you just get through this, if you win this fight, you win this fight. If you lose this fight, you still win. Because I know the ability of Justice and how he can box, and they were looking at his previous fights. If you look at the fight against Kevin Lorena, he went into that fight, he couldn't even hit pads. He was hitting noodles. His diet was terrible. His strength and conditioning was disgraceful. Like, he wasn't fit. He wasn't ready for that fight. Everything was wrong about it. His diet was terrible. Everything was wrong, and he had no sparring. And even leading up, his dad was training him, and he was hitting noodles as pads. And if anyone had the vision and went back and at the open training session, he was hitting noodles. Didn't even hit pads going into that fight. He wasn't fit. He shouldn't have won that fight. And Kevin Lorena, if you remember Kevin Lorena before that fight, he dropped Daniel Gonzalez 3 times in the first round.
Yep.
So he's no slouch. And for Justice to go into that fight and win it, I know he got rocked in the last round, but he was buggered. He was tired.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Lorena is known as a power puncher. And he clocked, and thank God Kevin was gassed as well, because Justice might have been in a bit of trouble. But the way Justice stayed on his feet, and he couldn't even remember the last round. Justice, he couldn't even remember the fight after the fight. And I was super proud of his effort in that particular fight, and I think he did an amazing job under the circumstances going into that fight. And I think everyone and every time Justice has gone into a fight, from his third fight, he's been injured. He's never fought. Even when he went into going back, I think it was his third fight, it might have been his fourth fight. Christian Zoy, it was during COVID. Christian Zoy, he was expected to stop Christian Zoy because the first 3 fights Justice had stopped all his opponents, and it went to distance. But we brought a guy over from New Zealand, and the first 3 days his eyes were starting to blow up, and we said, as a sparring partner, and we said, okay, Justice, no more punching to the head, let's work on the body. So So this guy's doing these, like lifting his elbows, and Justice hit him right at the end of the elbow. This is 2 weeks out before his fight against Christian Zoy. He couldn't even make a fist. He was struggling to get his hand on the glove. It went the distance. Everyone said, "Oh, Justice has got no power. Justice has got no power." Then 4 weeks later, he went straight into the fight against Paul Gallup. Mind you, he done 52,000 buys on local
Hmm.
pay per view TV. It was a massive, massive fight. That's probably one of the biggest selling fights in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And it was a profile building fight. He ended up stopping Paul Gallen in the 10th round, but he went into that fight as well with one hand, no sparring. Everyone's, Justice Huni's got no power. He was struggling to stop a footballer. Mate, if people understand the backstory, how hard he dug to get to make these fights happen. Like that was 2 fights with one hand. He was supposed to 2 weeks after that, he was going into camp with the Australian team for the Olympics, for the Tokyo Olympics, and he couldn't pass the medical. He was devastated, but he decided to stay on with his boxing. Like he was, if anyone remembers back then, he was actually $1.20 favourite to win gold. No Australian boxer's ever won gold at boxing before. He would have been the first. It was heartbreaking to see Justice actually go through what he went through, and you know, he always had the idea of wanting to have a few pro fights and go. Look, that's now past. He'll never ever do that. But every single fight after that, they tried to change his style. They went over to LA and tried to muck around his style and teach him to be a fighter. He wasn't. He was getting hit way too much. So the last couple of fights, he's gone back to his roots. He's
Hmm.
gone back to the way he was training back when he was great. We've got a strength and conditioning coach in Buddy Bradford, which is he's the top of his game. We've got a really good team behind us, and I think after that loss, sometimes when a fighter has a loss, they actually get more out of it. And if you remember after that particular loss against Fabio Wardley, how relaxed he was. And I said to him, I said, mate, I've never seen someone be so happy after him getting beat on such an opportunity. But he said, Mick, it's the monkey off my back. I've always had so much pressure put onto me over the years of coming up through the ranks as an amateur. He was always tipped to do great things in Australia, and he said it's the monkey off my back. I said now I can relax and I can just go out there and fight the way I want to fight. So look, I think we haven't seen the best of Justice Huni. I think Justice will be a great fight for Moses. I think that'll be if Moses ever wants to test himself, they're both young men. They're both great boxers. I think that would probably be a great test for Justice and for Moses. But I think we haven't seen the best of Justice Huni, and he's only 26, and I can't wait to see the best of him. And you'll probably see the best of him in his next fight.
When could the next fight possibly be?
I'm hoping to put Justice as the co-main on Jai's next fight, and we're looking
Okay.
at the date is the 2nd of November here on the Gold Coast. It hasn't been announced yet, so there's an exclusive. We're in negotiations with the Gold Coast, Experience Gold Coast now, which is the local government, which they were great to us last time. They got behind the event. The Gold Coast Convention Centre, which is a state-of-the-art venue. That's the only date they have, unfortunately, because they're so popular. And so that looks like it's the date that we're going to work towards, which is probably 8 weeks from this weekend. I've done the numbers, so there's plenty of time for both teams to get ready and get this fight out of the way, and hopefully that Jai and Justice can have an opportunity towards the back end of the year to have another fight, because they both deserve it and they need it. They need to stay active because that's what they do. They're professional fighters and they're young and they're hungry and they want to fight. So let's keep these guys moving.
Absolutely. Well, a couple guys things I have before I let you go, Mick. One of which is talking about Connor Wallace, another phenomenal fighter you have as well. As you said, getting himself lined up for a world championship shot there. What's in store for his future?
Yeah, look, he's another great guy. And you talk about characters in the sport. Like, he's one of the most coolest, friendliest, craziest, like everything. He's everything. And he's a mad Irishman, lives here in Brisbane.
Hmm.
He's been over in Australia, I think about 7 or 8 years now. He's got a massive support base. Like well, for years, he's been a privilege to promote. And I think I've had him since his third fight, and the first fight, one of the first fights he fought under Tasman fighters, and he was so proud to be a Tasman fighter, and he actually lost. And for anyone to be so proud to be a Tasman fighter, and he felt so gutted, and he felt like he let me down. Just because you get beat, I don't care, mate. Like that's so what it's a speed hump. You learn. Everyone learns from their losses and their mistakes, and he come back better, hungrier. And by the way, I still thought he won that particular fight, but he come back better, hungrier. Like he's grown over the last couple of years. He's actually grown into what he is now. And there was a fight against. It was on a no limit card in Sydney. It was against their fighter Jerome Pampelone. It was for the number 2 spot. It was a massive fight, and Jerome's he was undefeated at the time. And Jerome's from New Zealand, originally from the UK, and he's known for his power. And Connor has in the past been a little bit chinny.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't been knocked down, but you can see it affects him, and he loves the bang as well, which is not great when you're a little chinny. And that particular fight, he grew into who he is now, and he's world class now. You know, yeah, the knockers were out there early, but that Jerome Pampelone fight went the distance, but they punched the absolute crap out of each other, and Jerome was loading up on like Connor was on the ropes, and Jerome was loading up, and you know he was landing some really nice punches, and I was worried. You know, I'm move, Connor, move, like just keep moving, because I thought, mate, at any moment, Jerome, he's a knockout artist. Mate, Connor ate those punches, outboxed the guy, boxed the other guy's ears off, won the fight. It was a split decision, nowhere near a split decision. Connor won nearly every bloody round, but they couldn't take it from him because it'd be a riot in the crowd, because Connor obviously brings a massive crowd. Mm-hmm. So since that particular fight, he's just grown, and he loves the bang. And I keep saying, mate, you're a great boxer. Box. We brought a guy over from South Africa. I think the first 7 rounds, it was a war. Connor got rocked. He got rocked. Connor's coach said to him, he said, Connor, just give me 1 round. Just give me 1 round boxing. He went out and he goes, okay, went out there and boxed his ears off and stopped him. Dropped him 3 times and stopped him. Like, Connor can do it. He's got the ability. He's world class. He's got the pedigree. He's got the amateur career. He's got the support. He's got the promoter. You know, we're on the zone. Like, we've got the opportunity for everything. So I can see Connor being a world champion. So we've been ordered to fight Michael Eifert. Michael Eifert, he's from Germany. He's number 1. Mate, Connor eats him. I can tell you right now, Connor stops him, and Connor will be, you know, the IBF light heavyweight champion of the world very, very soon. And how exciting! And if Justice won that fight against Fabio Wardley, we'd have 3 world champions in our stable. And for a guy that started in boxing 7 or 8 years ago, and you know, look, fighters get knocked, I get knocked, and for someone that, you know, that's only still learning, and I say to Joy all the time, I said, mate, I've been, you know, you're my test case. You know, I'm learning on the job through you, and we're all learning. So the next generation, I've got some really good young kids coming through. Max McIntyre, he's a really good athlete. He's going to be something special. Ben Marnie, he's 15-0. He's in the super welterweight division. He's going to do something special. Jason Maloney, he's 34 now, and I've just signed Jason, and he's coming off 2 losses. And I feel as though I can do something really good with Jason and bring him back. And I feel as though I can give him another world title shot, because, you know, if you know, in a way, he fought Inoue. He's fought some really, really good fighters over the years. He's got the ability. He's probably one of the best fighters in Australia right now, apart from Jai. Even though he's coming off 2 losses, he's still an amazing talent. So, yeah, we've got a really, really good team, and as I said, we only have a small team, but the guys we have, we get right behind them. We financially support them ourselves. We put our hand in their pocket, and we find the best possible opponents we can find to develop their careers, and that's where we're at.
Now, 2 guys I want to wrap up with, one of which is, I'm not sure exactly who you guys stand with him, but I believe you guys co-promote or something along the lines with Termoana as well. Walk us through him. I think he's a very exciting prospect as well. And then obviously you talk about Max as well. He's someone that's been on the show before. I love what he brings to the table. Just talk about those 2 guys a little bit and how bright their futures are.
Yeah, look, Termoana, he's got a lot of learning to do still. You know, he's probably a little bit like Moses, where he hasn't really been tested. Like he's big, he's strong, he's only young as well. He's 25 or 26 years old. He's got a really good team behind him as well. So yeah, we co-promote him with Eddie Matchroom. So he's got a massive future ahead of him. He's a giant. He's a gentle giant. He's quite quirky. Um, I've been involved with Terra Moana from day one, and we're excited about his future. So, look, he's still going through the learning process. I think he'll develop as a fighter. I think it's going to take a special heavyweight to actually beat him. I think him and Moses have been spoken about. I think it'd be a shame for those two guys to fight so early, but I can see that fight actually brewing in the future. So, look, there's a lot of good fights that could be made from our stables with, especially the UK market. Max McIntyre is a super middleweight. He's only 20. He's just turned 20 as well. He's 8-0, 7 knockouts. And if you have a look at how we're progressing him, he's got a long way to go. Like we've signed him for a long-term deal, so we've got big plans for him, and we want to progress. And he's going to be one of our next superstars that are come through our ranks. And I feel as though that over the next 2 or 3 years, we just need to give him the right fights. But every time we give him a fight, it's not just the sake of having a fight. We're actually going to keep progressing. And he'll be on the undercard as well for Jai's fight.
Okay.
There's some exciting names, that locals from New Zealand and local names that have come to mind, and we're going to step him up, and it's going to be announced very, very soon. And he's going to be fighting someone with a profile, someone that's done some amazing stuff in the sport. But I think he's up for it, and I think timing's everything in this sport, and I think timing now is the right time for Max McIntyre to really develop and show the world what he's actually capable of. So, Austin Akuso, the Akuso brothers, I've got Austin Akuso. Problem with Austin, he's got a full-time job, he's got kids, he's got a family, he's got commitment, and he's a part-time fighter, but he's got the ability to go all the way. And, I'd love to see Austin, get his mojo and get a taste for boxing at the higher level, because I know that he's got the ability to go all the way. He's got the dedication. He's got all the skill in the world. He's got a great chin. I think that Austin can go all the way as well. I've got another guy. He's a lighter guy, Tyler Blizzard. Now Tyler Blizzard is 10-0. He is one of the most hungriest guys I've got on the roster. He's going to be. Am I still there?
Yep, I'm still here. Yep.
Yeah, he's going to be an amazing talent. So, have you lost? Am I still there or not?
Yeah, you're good. You're all good. Yep.
Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah.
Yep.
So look, he's Tyler Blizzard's an amazing talent. He's so hungry, and I'm proud to have him on board as well. And I feel as though that he's going to be another one at the lighter divisions, at a featherweight division, that's going to take on some serious fights here in the future as well. But Tasman Fighters, the future's looking bright. We've got the best stable in Australia, one of the best in the world. And I'm excited to see how far I can progress these guys that put their faith in me.
Absolutely. Mick, I have one final question for you. It's the question I wrap up every interview with, and that's talking about your legacy.
I can't hear you, mate.
You can't hear me here? One sec. Apologies for the technical difficulties. So, Mick, as I was saying, I have one final question for you. It's the question I'm wrapping up every interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. Obviously, you're still just getting into the sport, and you have great things here with all that you're accomplishing. But I want to ask you.
Can't hear you, mate.
Did it cut out again? One sec. Test. Can you hear me? Testing. Check. All right, so my final question for you, Mick, is this one final question I wrap up every interview with, and that's talking about
Yep.
your legacy. When you get to a point when you step away from this boxing industry, what do you want your legacy to be for what you have accomplished and brought to the sport?
I want Tasman Fighters to be a global brand. I want Tasman Fighters to be last well beyond me. I like to see someone else that's younger and fresher with better ideas to actually develop this brand into something major in this country, this part of the world, and hopefully I'll be known as someone that actually gave a shit about these guys that work their asses off, and I did it for the right reasons. And I've left some kids in this sport that have achieved things they could never have dreamed they could have achieved in the sport without obviously my help. I know they've got to do it in the ring, they've got to do it in the gym, they've got to do all the work, but they also need opportunities, and I hope I've created opportunities for these guys to one day see them in the pub and have a beer and say thank you. So that to me would mean a lot. So I know, we need to financially make it work as well. But it's if this was a money making scheme for me, I'd be the dumbest businessman in the world. This is honestly, I've invested so much money into this sport, it'd make your eyes water. But I'm fortunate enough to have a good family behind me. I've got other businesses outside of boxing, and I've got a really good team behind me as far as we've got an advisory board of a group of very influential, wealthy people that have achieved amazing things in their careers. So it's not like it's just me. There's a team behind us, and we've got a great advisory board, as I said. So I hope I've changed a lot of lives in the sport, and I hope that I can see Tasman Fighters as being a brand that sticks around for a long time after me.
I love that. Well, Mick, it's been an honor and a blessing having you on the show today. And I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you, Mick.
Me too, mate. Who knows? So stay tuned. Follow Tasman Fighters on our social media platforms. Um, the 2nd of November, I think, is the date for Jai. Tune in if you can. It's probably on the zone around the world. So if you can, tune in, have a look at the amazing stuff that we do. I think our shows are one of the best, domestic shows that, globally. So tune in and see whether I'm serious or whether I'm just talking shit.
Absolutely. Definitely will be tuning in for that. I appreciate you coming on once again, Mick. You're always welcome on.
No, appreciate it, Zach. Thank you.
No problem. God bless.
Take care.
I appreciate you guys all for tuning into that interview. I'll have that clipped up, edited out, and then posted onto my YouTube channel very shortly after the show wraps up. I'm going to go on a short break, and they'll get right back into the rest of the show after that. I'll see you guys shortly. If you guys do have any comments or questions or topics for me to address when I get back live, make sure to leave it in the chat, and I'll address that right after. I'll see you guys shortly. going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. If you guys are having a blessed night. With that being said, just to give you guys a quick outline of what we got left for the remainder of today's show. A fight preview for the fight going down tomorrow, and then I'm also going to be getting into some boxing news. Let's get right into the fight preview, though. Iglesias will be fighting Vladimir Shishkin for the IBF super middleweight title eliminator. The unbeaten Cuban powerhouse Iglesias, 13-0 with 12 KOs, will be facing the Russian contender Shishkin, who is 16-1, 10 KOs. Shishkin is coming off of his loss to William School in his previous loss, in which obviously William School ended up getting the fight against Canelo Alvarez in the situation, becoming world champion. But let's get right to this. I'm just going to be honest. I have this fight going quite easily in the way of Iglesias. I think he's going to get a mid-round stoppage. I think he's going to put the pressure on Shishkin. He is a tough fight for Shishkin, but I don't feel like this is going to be much of a threat for Iglesias. He's going to go out there, get a mid-round stoppage, and take care of business and prove why he is one of the top contenders at middleweight. Let's go into some boxing news, though. I have a question to propose to you guys. Where is Frank Martin? Like, seriously, I mean, you look at Frank Martin. This is a man who is coming off his Tank Davis fight. Now, in that Tank Davis fight, he took a brutal KO. There was going to need to be some recovery from that standpoint, and that is what it is. But leading up to that fight, though, up to the KO, I should say, Frank Martin was having a really good performance. Now, this was not a performance that he was going to beat Garcia Tank Davis with, but it was a good enough performance where it created a lot of hype. Well, he's no longer at 135, moved to 140, and there is a division there where he can make some noise at it. He's a good fighter, a talented fighter. No, he's not on Gervonta Tank Davis' level, but he made a good statement in that performance. And yet, push comes to shove, we are well over 1 year removed from the last time we've seen Frank Martin. There's no fight news, no fight rumors, a couple videos coming out here and there of him getting in the gym. My biggest question is, where is Frank Martin? If he were wise, he would have pivoted off of his phenomenal marketing campaign, I should say, with Gervonta Tank Davis fight, and he would have put himself in position for another good payday, continue to rise up the rankings at 140, and make some noise there. Yet, we don't know where Frank Martin is. And it's a shame because Frank Martin is a very interesting, a very exciting fighter. He's the guy that I think a lot of people were looking forward to seeing back in the ring. I know I am. And yet, we don't know when he's going to return. That is problematic for himself and for boxing as a whole. This is the man that should have capitalized on what happened with Gervonta Tank Davis, got himself right back into the ring, and made some statements. And yet here we are, and we don't know where Frank Martin currently is at. Hopefully we have news coming up soon, but I just wonder, where is Frank Martin? Because it is a little bit interesting as to what's going on with him in the situation, the standpoint in life. Now, Inoue and David Picasso have reached an agreement for a December 27th bout. Now, you have to give props. Inoue is always a man with a plan. Every time he gets ready to go into a fight, and his upcoming fight is going to be September 14th, he always has plan B ready to go. Who's he going to fight right after it? We now have that officially announced. David Picasso, who I guess was going to be the option for quite some time, is now coming to fruition. The biggest question is that December 27th bout going to be a massive Riyadh season card with the Mexico versus Japan card? I hope it is. That would make for a phenomenal card, one of the most entertaining cards we've ever seen in boxing. Hopefully that's what happens, but David Picasso versus Naoya Inoue is officially locked in. WBO featherweight champion Rafael Espinoza is slated to return to the ring in November on a Zamfir boxing event in Mexico. All right, here's what's interesting here. Rafael Espinoza. There's a man that we should be seeing have a fight against right now. His name is Bruce Carrington. Why is Bruce Carrington's fight with Rafael Espinoza not happening yet? Both guys were at top rank. And yet, we can't seem to make this fight happen? It's absolutely baffling to me. Bruce Carrington, Rafael Espinoza makes too much sense underneath the top-ranked brand not to happen, yet, once again, it's not going to occur. Now, it does make a little bit of sense when you have the top-rank issue right now where there's no TV deal in place. Where do you go from here? Where do you pivot? How do you maneuver? Well, we're seeing some interesting news right now. He's going to have to go fight underneath the Zamfir boxing event. Not necessarily a high-profiled event, but it is what it is. It's going to cause a lot of ripple effects. Top rank not being on TV right now, not having a TV deal, is hurting themselves and it's hurting the sport overall. Hopefully, we get that figured out so we can stop these issues from occurring. Jack Catterall is parting ways with his coaches. Interesting news. I think it's time for this. They've got him as far as they could have gotten him. I am shocked that it ended up coming to fruition like this. But listen, I'm honestly happy the move happened. I think it needed to happen. We'll see what ends up unfolding here. But yes, Jack Catterall parting ways with his coaches is the right move. Allows him to go kind of reset a little bit, get himself ready for his next fight, and continue to progress and move forward in his career because some of his most recent performances have been a little bit lackluster. They haven't been quite up to par, have not been up to standard, so him moving on is not a bad idea whatsoever. Offer for Anthony Joshua to fight in Ghana. Eddie Hearn has said that an offer has now been made for Anthony Joshua to fight in Ghana. This is his exact quote. I think it would be incredible for AJ to fight in Africa. When you're doing site deals, a lot of it depends on when that site wants the show. If Ghana comes back and says, we like to go January or February, that's the offer. Interesting. We already know that Anthony Joshua's return fight will be a tune-up fight. Makes sense. Nothing against that. Him going and fighting Africa, which has always been his dream, would make plenty of sense. I hope it ends up actually unfolding. I think it would be a great place for him to go fight. Just make this fight happen. Check it off your bucket list. A tune-up fight. Get yourself ready. Then mid-year, you can go get a big fight, probably back in the UK. That's what I would advise. I hope they end up doing that for Anthony Joshua. And the final thing I want to ask on the show, talk about on the show, is in regards to Danny Garcia. It has officially now been announced that Danny Garcia will fight Daniel Gonzalez in a super welterweight clash on October 18th in Brooklyn. The former ring super lightweight champion will fight for a 10th and final time at the Barclays Center. It should be his final fight of his career. He's now moving into the promotional scene. I like this move for Danny Garcia. Makes a lot of sense. Cool situation for him to kind of have a send-off fight officially. We'll see how it is unfolding, but that's what we do have in store there. With that being said, though, I don't see any more comments and things in the chat, so I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your guys' day. I will be back live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I will be announcing who that guest is tomorrow, but I hope you guys do have a blessed rest of your guys' night. I'll be back live tomorrow. See you guys at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll see you guys back tomorrow. May God bless you guys all. And with that being said, SchuZ is out. God bless you guys.